Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning, you fantastic people, wherever you are. Welcome to Chibi Reads Reddit. I'm your host, DoomChibi99. Today's subreddit is r/Am I the Dingus. I will be censoring myself and giving some hot takes after each story. So sit back, get cozy, grab a drink, and let's read. Am I the dingus for leaving the hospital after my sister gave birth and announced the name of her baby? I, 32 female, have been dealing with infertility for 7 years now. My husband and I are prepared for the fact we might never get to have a child together, but it's not easy. We're both currently in individual therapy to help us process all of this and find a way to be at peace regardless of what the future holds for us. But I truly hope we are lucky enough to have a child. My husband and I have baby names picked out, but we never talk about them. But we have a little note on our baby name book with our boy and girl name pick. It's in our bedroom. We don't look at it much anymore, but it keeps us hoping, you know? My sister, 36 female, has 5 daughters, and 2 weeks ago she gave birth to her first son. My husband was working, but I was at the hospital with my parents and my sister's in-laws waiting for the birth. Once he was born, we were called in to meet my nephew, and my sister told us they had chosen the name Elio for him. Hopefully not real name. Sister said the name was originally mine and my husband's top choice, but since we wouldn't be having any kids after all this time, she decided they should use it and not let the name go to waste being kept secret by me. It was then I remember seeing my sister at my room while she was pregnant a few months before. I thought nothing of it at the time, but realized she'd been snooping. My parents asked how she could do this without talking to me first. My sister replied that it seemed a shame to waste a perfectly good name if I asked her not to use it. And I apologize for the icons being there. Can't get rid of them. I'm on mobile. Can you blame me? I couldn't handle it and left. I didn't even say congrats or anything. I left and went home, and I cried for a while. The very next day, my sister called and asked me why I made it such a big deal. She also decided to drop that she was hurt. I'd never discussed my baby names with her, gatekeeping them, even when I knew I wouldn't have a baby. I asked her how she could go out of her way to take the one name my husband and I had picked. She called me sensitive. I ended the call without another word. My parents checked in on me 2 days after, but since then, my parents have said I should let it go and apologize for walking out. My sister also said I made her postpartum time and it was very selfish on my part. Am I the dingus? Abso-freaking-lutely not. She went snooping, she took the name, and now your parents want to try and keep the peace? No way. OP, you are definitely not the dingus, and you chose not to make a scene over it. Your sister deserves to be a dingus along with your parents because that keep the peace mentality doesn't do well in the end. Am I the dingus for not attending a child's birthday party because her mother is fake? Ever since I've, 35 female, known my wife, 32 female, one of her friends has been fake, but my wife has had a hard time letting her go because she already doesn't have many friends. This friend invited my wife to her graduation, but didn't tell my wife that she gave all the tickets away until after she showed up and couldn't get it. Last month, this friend RSVP'd her 2 kids for my stepdaughter's birthday, but never showed up and never said anything, and that's supposedly her goddaughter. The last straw was when she claimed she was bringing food to a birthday party I threw for my wife, but never wished her a happy birthday or said anything about the party until days after it was over. Even her friend from New Orleans flew in for the party, which made the fake one look even worse. My sweet wife finally had enough. So last week, this friend put my wife and her ex in a group chat inviting everyone and all the kids to her daughter's birthday this weekend. Her ex replied saying they'll all come, even though my wife has the kids on weekends. But my wife never even acknowledged the text or sent any type of confirmation or RSVP. We have 7 kids between me, my wife, and her ex's new family. So we basically would have been the whole party as we usually are. Well, none of us showed up or said anything, and the friend just knew we'd all be there. The only other kid at the party was the birthday girl's brother. An hour into the party, the friend texted them, asking if they needed directions. Then she desperately started calling my wife, which is crazy because she never calls or texts her. I hate that an innocent child has to suffer because her mom is fake, but adults need to learn to respect people's time and communicate better. Am I the dingus? Nope, no. Seems like this so-called friend just liked to have things done on her schedule, on her time. But yeah, OP, you're not the dingus, your wife's not the dingus, this friend definitely is, and in my advice, you should cut ties. It's just gonna get worse. Am I the dingus for fighting with my brother-in-law's girlfriend after she made a comment about my nationality? Oh boy, here we go. Here's the situation. I, 30 female, am from Argentina, but came to the USA on a scholarship after graduating. I landed a great job here, and I also met my now fiancé, Jared, 30 male, hopefully fake name. We've been together for 5 years, and recently we decided to get married. This Saturday, we had a dinner with his family where we announced our engagement. Everyone seemed happy for us, but then Jared's brother's recent girlfriend, Sarah, 26 female, made a comment that really upset me. She said something about, I'm gonna be the typical crazy Latina wife, kind of like Sofia Vergara in Modern Family. This isn't the first time she's made comments like this, but I never put a stop to it because I didn't want to seem hypocritical. Because me and my fiance do those kinds of jokes. We don't know each other that well, so I feel like these jokes are out of place, especially since they're always very far from my own culture. I tried to keep cool, but I told her that I didn't appreciate those kinds of comments and that they made me uncomfortable. I said I didn't think it was appropriate for her to make these jokes about my nationality when we barely know each other. Sarah seemed surprised by my reaction and apologized, but then tried to clarify that she wasn't being racist because she's also kind of Latina. Apparently, her grandmother was from Mexico. I got annoyed and explained to her that having a relative from Latin America doesn't make her Latina or understand what it's like to be from Latin America, and it doesn't give her the right to make those kinds of comments to me. And I admit I was a little rude to her at that point. Things got heated eventually. Jared's brother told me I had to apologize and I was being over the top for that joke. Jared excused us to his parents and we left. Now Jared thinks I'm right, but the way I acted wasn't good. His brother contacted him and said he hoped I apologized, but I feel like I had every right to stand up for myself, so am I the dingus for fighting with her? Absolutely not. A racist mind is a racist kind, and it sounds like Jared's brother is thinking with the head between his legs instead of the one on his shoulders. OP, you are not the dingus, and I am really glad that Jared's sticking up for you. I hope his brother comes to his senses, and as for the girlfriend, she really needs to back off with those kinds of comments. Am I the dingus for calling out a family feeding animals at our local zoo? Instantly not, but let's get into this. I, my wife, and her sister recently went to a local city zoo that rests in a park. This is a tiny zoo that has maybe 10 to 20 animals and has explicit rules about not feeding the animals. My wife and I are only visiting the city since we live across the country, but where we live, not feeding animals/wildlife is taken very seriously as we live near bear country. You don't want to mess with the bears. I saw a family clearly not caring about the rules. 3 to 5 kids, a few moms, and an older man I'm assuming was their grandfather. I approached them and sternly said, "Guys, do not feed the animals. It clearly says on the signs." This was directed at the groups as a whole, but I made eye contact with the grandfather as he was the one handing out food. The grandfather proceeded to tell me that it's the zoo and they'll do what they like, and said he'd make me regret it if I don't leave. So I said screw it and walked away, and said I'll just inform the staff, of which there were none I could find. When we got to the car, this man had followed us and decided to threaten my sister-in-law, and he said he'd taken a photo of her license plate and called the cops. Neither of us said anything and we left. When we got home to sister-in-law's, my wife came to me and said that what I did was not okay. I'm not the police, and that I shouldn't go around scaring families trying to have fun at the zoo. While I understand how the threat at the end scared my sister-in-law and my wife, I apologize for what happened, and how it made it feel. But I tried to point out that the man following us and threatening us is clearly the person in the wrong. Wife wouldn't budge, and I'm the bad guy here, so am I the dingus? No, absolutely not. The main rule at zoos are, do not feed the animals. I remember like years back at Toronto Zoo, we had this orangutan that ate things that people threw into his enclosure, and he unfortunately passed away. So yeah, that rule is enforced. If the animal is cured of their existence by something you throw into their enclosure, you are the one responsible. OP, you are not the dingus. You try to do good. I just hope your wife comes around and sees this too. Am I the dingus for telling my mother-in-law not to call my puppy insulting names? My mother-in-law, 67, very active and healthy, has been staying with us. 34 female, husband 34, 2 kids 4 and 5. For 3 days because I'm currently on bed rest, awaiting major surgery, and my husband had to be gone for work. My mother-in-law can be difficult and overbearing, speaking over me and butting into parenting moments. Still, she cares a lot and has driven 3 hours here to help us. She has made meals, taken our kids on outings, and even gone grocery shopping. I am truly, deeply grateful for her help. We have a 7-month-old pup who's mostly my responsibility. I have worked in animal care forever and is well trained. People never believe me when I say he's only 7 months old. He's almost always with me. With my mother-in-law taking care of pretty much everything else, our pup has gotten the short end of the stick and has had little exercise or stimulation for days. I don't blame my mother-in-law for this at all, but his behavior has become a little more wild because of it. Mother-in-law has resorted to yelling at him, tying him up, or locking him up. He has been having stress accidents in the house and barking, which is abnormal. We live in a very rural area and don't have close neighbors, dog daycares, or walking services. My closest friends and family are like an hour away. My sister will come up once a week to help, and I've mostly kept my mouth shut about my mother-in-law's decisions on handling our pup since she's been helping us out. But I've been getting really upset by her calling him psychotic, out of control, nothing but trouble, never calms down, and other names. I started saying things like, please try to remember, he's only 7 months old. Everything has changed for him, and he's gotten no exercise in days. My husband came home tonight and 10 minutes later we had a Zoom counseling. My mother-in-law insisted the puppy stay with her while we went down to our meeting. My husband heard me saying to mother-in-law, this is the time of night I would usually like to take him for a walk or play fetch. He probably won't settle down without it, but if you're having a hard time with him, please send him downstairs. She called him a spaz, and I made a comment like mentioned above. My husband later said I had been a major dingus for correcting his mom and insinuating that she needed to take him for a walk after everything she had done for us already. I think it's cool to be yelling at a puppy who's not getting its needs met. The whole counseling session, I can hear him barking, her yelling at him, and it turns out she just locked him up the whole time rather than send him down like I asked. So am I the dingus for correcting my mother-in-law? Hell nah! Dude, that's kind of borderline animal abuse. My dog, when he was a puppy, he had to be locked up all day because his owners were out, and it kind of ruined his puppyhood. But yeah, OP, you really need to sit your husband down and talk about this because it seems like your mother-in-law doesn't care what happens to your pup. OP, you are not the dingus. Hope your husband gets on board with this soon, too. Am I the dingus for telling my parents they became liars the second they started fostering their adopted daughter? My parents started fostering when I, 19 female, was only 6. My younger brother was 3 at the time. I never had a problem with it. It was normal, and I got along with a lot of the foster siblings who came to live with us. This then changed with Amy. I met Amy in 2nd grade. She was new to my class, and we just didn't get along. I remember other kids saying she was mad at me, and I had no idea why. We only knew each other for a few days at that point. I remember thinking if she was mad at me for nothing, then I was mad at her. We clashed a lot. Then in 3rd grade, she started bullying me. She'd throw my lunch on the floor and step on it. She'd make up lies about me farting to get other kids to make fun of me. She told the teacher she wouldn't sit/work with freaky eye. I have a scar across my left eye. She'd also say that I was evil like Scar from The Lion King. Scar gave her plenty of ammunition, and eventually, I became very self-conscious of this. My parents knew about the bullying, and they were called in to speak to the teachers and the principal over the bullying. Oh god, I can see where this is going. Turns out Amy was a foster kid. Guess who decided to take her in? My parents. We were 10. My parents decided to adopt her. My parents were asked how I felt about it by a lot of people. They lied and said I was good with it and I was excited to help Amy and get along with her better. It was a lie. I screamed the house down when I found out and begged my parents not to. My brother didn't like Amy either. She had used him against me so many times at school and he knew about it. My parents blamed me for my brother and Amy not getting along. When I was 15, we had this really big fight. My parents told me Amy was much my sibling as my brother was, and they weren't happy that I didn't acknowledge her as such. I told them that I never would. That they would adopt her 100 times over, and I still wouldn't call my sister. I told them that they chose helping her over protecting me. I told them I wish she'd stayed in the foster system forever and that nobody had ever loved her, because she was a bully and I was tired of being her target. I told them she had won though. She had them, and I would never see them the same way again. A year later, Amy and I got into a fight, and I was allowed to go and live with my grandparents. My parents tried to keep in touch with me, but I made no effort, and eventually I started telling people my parents had lied about me wanting them to foster and adopt Amy. People treat my parents differently as a result, and they confronted me about this 3 weeks ago. They showed up at my grandparents and said we need to talk. They mentioned me calling them liars, and I said they are. And they became liars the second they started fostering Amy. My parents told me I had such a selfish outlook of the situation, and I told them they chose Amy, so I didn't owe them or her a selfless outlook. Am I the dingus? No way, Jose! These parents are blinded by wanting more foster kids or wanting to foster them, and they chose a bully over their kid. Yeah, that's kind of borderlining on favoritism here. OP, you are not the dingus. I hope you and your brother are doing okay. Your parents are dinguses, and I hope they take their heads out of their butts, because clearly they're up there for the warmth. Looks like we've reached the end of today's video, but fret not, I'll be back tomorrow with more Reddit stories just for you. Want to get notified of the next video? Tap that bell icon. Want to subscribe? Tap the button. It's completely free. Anyways, that's it for today's video. Thank you for watching, and until next time, catch you later, my Chibi Dominators.